Yes, we are there for coffee break number 31. And today we are in America. I'm in India. And our
Nice.
guest today is Laura Brennan Ballet.
Hello. We,
Welcome.
well, thank you. We were just having such a great conversation before we went live. So I'm all excited about everything that you were sharing with me. It's amazing. Growth, right? Growth, advancement, creativity, expansion. It's what we wish for everyone.
Yeah, and it's amazing, yeah, to see like how everything matches. Like, yeah, we are just doing different things, but in the end, like it's all parallel. It seems all to just fit in, yeah, in what is there.
And I think this is really part of the magic or the alchemy, right, of connectivity. This is why it's so important to open your mind and your heart and your spirit and let in new information and new knowledge and be open. I was just having a discussion with someone in business the other day about this, how when you feel resistance, that is the key to let the release the resistance and open up more to it. We're so trained and conditioned to feel something and then like close up on it, right? Contract. Where so much of what we're all trying to do is express how when you open your mind, open your senses, right? Like we were talking about Gina, conscious music code, the beauty of that musicality, everything we were talking about now, which I can't even basically sit in my chair with what you just shared with me. The sensory, me with my book, right? The written word, the knowledge. There's so much out here for leadership to exercise expansion for the betterment of their home life, their corporations, and what we do as a global community. So the creative collaboration is just amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and for the people who are watching today we will talk about the science of empowerment. So yeah, maybe you explain to the people what for you is empowerment.
Yes. So again, almost what I was just saying, I completely forgot we were going to talk about anything to do with what I wrote about because I so believe that when we allow ourselves to align with knowledge, even if we don't quite understand what we're reading or what we're listening to. But if we have an openness to what new knowledge can do for us, this is how we begin to create an empowered life. So when we have resistance, when we have a lack of confidence, and we talked about this, when we are stuck in our old way of being, of doing, of thinking, it really closes the door to how we can really empower ourselves and one another. So, part of for me, the writing of this book, it took 5 years of my life. I absolutely am thrilled of how it is transforming the mindset and the consciousness and the awareness to what an empowered life can look like. And this is really based on a formula, and my brother Christopher created this formula. It's 5 principles, and they are interchangeable with what we were just talking about. So Gina's music, the sense of these beautiful aromas, the 4D lean, creating happiness in the work environment. It's all contained in the same movement, and we're finding different ways to go about it. So, for instance, where we talk about higher human potential, when we talk about advancing development within the global community, when you apply these 5 principles, so awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, and energy. So when you run through those principles, it starts to change the way we look at contraction and expansion. It puts you in the power seat to understand that when you hone in on your awareness, this begins to open the mind. When you are willing to expand your present condition, right? Expansion happens. When you are accountable for where you've been anchored or stuck, and you open your sensories to advance, this changes things. When we release the emotional constriction, right, from the ego, and we begin to go into critical thought, meaning positive intelligence, look what comes in. And we all know this, right? Because we're creating and we're collaborating. And when we move into the fifth principle, energy, negative, positive, neutral. And so what we do at the Science of Empowerment is really support learning how to neutralize outdated patterns, right? Negative behaviors. So we can open up that sensory when we're in a neutral position and now start to move towards positive outcomes, positive creation, positive, visionary work. And so that's kind of the base of it. So you run this formula through no matter what you're doing, and it really supports other programs as well because it's already kind of in there. It puts maybe a bit of an intellectual, technical structure around it, but we have 5-year-old, 7-year-old kids in our training facility that we teach this to them in 10 minutes. And you should see their brain. It just like wires up. Now, we don't measure it the way you do with the scan, which I would love to do someday, but it's in that vein of again, exploring the science of empowerment. How can we become empowered individuals for the well-being of the global family?
Mhm. Is the sequence also like that? Is willingness, is that the first step?
So awareness is the first principle. Then you follow, right? Because when we become aware of something, we
Mhm.
then are put in the position to ask ourselves, what am I willing to do about it? So second principle, willing. Now we go into the third principle, accountability, because so many of us, it's so much easier to blame outside conditions for why we feel the way we feel, why we're acting, behaving the way we are. So that third principle to me is so important. When we take responsibility, accountability, we then move ourselves into the fourth principle, critical thinking. We start to release all that emotional angst around why we feel the way we feel. We move into critical thinking, which allows us to take on a more positive intellectual structure, right? So, how thought creates things. So, this is, I go very deep in the book about this. How we think about everything really is how we experience it. So,
Mhm.
critical thinking allows us to change the way we think about thought itself. Then we go into energy. And I love this one, the fifth principle, right? Energy is in everything.
Mhm.
And when we understand that we actually are in the power seat of choice, negative or positive energies, we start to really become empowered. We realize that if we're in a negative state of thinking, we usually are in a negative state of being. So now when we realize, okay, maybe I can't move from a negative state to a positive state very fast because we're so conditioned and more in negativity. But that's why we put neutral into that formula. We pretty much can neutralize anything at any given moment. We can take a step back. We can take a breath. We can listen to Gina's music. We can spray, right? This beautiful aroma that you guys have created. But, right, like, so let's say right now I was agitated, something at work was getting me down, I'm not feeling valued. Now I can go into a space and I can spray this beautiful aroma. I can listen to some music, right? Quiet. I can take 5 minutes. I can go into the science of empowerment. I can be aware of my surroundings. I can be willing to remove myself from an environment that isn't quite positive. I can take accountability for recalibrating my own wellness. So in other words, I remove myself from that argument or from that discussion. I now go in, right? I'm accountable for my own well-being. I take the emotionality out of it. I start to think more in that positive intelligence line of alignment. Energy. Within a minute, neutral. Now I can start to figure out, how do I get myself grounded in positivity? And that's where we start building up our skills. The books we read, the people we collaborate with, right? We become visionaries. How can I change my whole being to be a more positive, empowered being? And now I'm starting to listen to music. I'm starting to add sensory. I'm starting to read this material. I'm allowing myself to expand and advance. And so, yes, there's a sequence to it. And like everything, the psychology and the neuroscience behind that sequence is very empowering. It's amazing when people do it. It's the same thing that you know through the 4D lean. It changes the neuronal pathways in the brain. Things start to spark differently. We can grow our brain at any given moment. We can grow our consciousness. We can grow our wellness. It's just the majority or the mass population has been conditioned to think otherwise, right? We don't
Yeah,
condition our employees. We don't condition our families. We don't condition our politics. We don't condition it to be brilliant, genius thinkers, self actualized thinking human beings. The majority of leadership conditions us to feel less than, where all of us and what we're trying to do is to spark that awareness that you are more than your present condition. So it's a little bit of the philosophy and the structure behind, what the book is about and what the formula is about. And certainly all the coaching and everything that I'm doing, and even when I collaborate, again, it's this beautiful exchange of knowledge and what we know works.
yeah. How many of your clients are women?
I would say the majority of the clientele is women, but
Mm.
I have gentlemen in there as well. It might be, for every four women, there's
Yeah,
one gentleman. But more and more, I'm seeing, men are starting to open up, but I'm going to give a nod to the empowering journey of a woman. Usually, the women lead this movement because we start to tap into our own power, and we do that in many ways. And then we start to share that with our husbands or our brothers or our, uncles or grandfathers or the leadership in our companies. And if men are open, this is the beginning to really creating an empowered, very happy world. I think maybe we need to work on tapping into the male energy even more than we're doing, but we're certainly trying.
yeah, yeah. And is it mainly individuals that you have as your clients, or is it corporates? How is that split?
Yes, so it's both. It's both because again, it's you can like I had a small company, a corporation I was working with, where individually I coach them on all their personal and private issues, but then collectively I would show up like every month and we would have a community mastermind group and we would bring questions and thoughts and feelings in. So on the corporate level, it's quite amazing what happens. But I find that some individuals thrive better when you do one-on-one coaching first or one-on-one advisorship or
Mm.
when you again you collaborate with that person and you see a little bit where their mindset is a bit more contracted, where when we do come together as a group, there's a sense of freedom to express for the collective good of the group. But some people are a bit nervous, right? Or they don't have the confidence in a group to express. But I believe when leadership in corporations sets the tone for the well-being of the individual so that the collective is working as a whole unit, that's where you've got a really great alchemy. But I guess unfortunately, but fortunately, leadership, it would behoove them to be open to expansion and however that looks. And we were talking about this before we went live. It's important for leadership, whether it's two people, 2,000, 200,000, to create this new way of being in the work environment. But I'm a firm believer that it starts on a personal level first. For example, Jim, if I was having issues at home, whether my partnership, with my kids, my health, whatever it is, when I show up to the work environment, I'm not at my best. Even right from the beginning of the morning, I'm not at my best. So, how do we create advancement on a personal level so that when we are showing up to collaborate, to envision what we can do as a company, we're really showing up with our very best self. So I think one-on-one coaching, one-on-one, in especially empowerment, um, can leverage the whole much differently than if each individual is just trying their best on their own, and then we come together as a unit and it's still, the energy can be off. That's what I have found. I
Mhm.
think when leadership allows you to create an environment for the greater good, it definitely changes the outcome.
Yeah. And how do you explain that? Because I see the same things in my scan, is that yeah, it's women are more aware than men.
Yeah.
So I call it then dimensional quotient. It's like a mix
Mm.
between IQ and EQ. What we see is that, like, women in average, they have an higher dimensional quotient than men. So the awareness, but also the willingness to change, is higher with women than with
Yeah.
men. Is that visible in your formula?
So the way I work with men and that male energy is we really start to work on the willingness. And that's where the one-on-one really comes in, because somewhere in their line of development, they they lost the ability to see willingness as a form of empowering others, right? So many men think if I'm willing to step outside my comfort zone, I lose control, i.e., I lose power, my ego, and all of that old language gets all moved in there. So, when we can really work with men in companies and express to them that your willingness to advance and expand and open your mind actually is a powerful experience for you. To empower others does not take away from you. It actually adds to who you are as a man. It actually creates more of an empowered environment, not for your ego, but for, again, the wellness and the wholeness of the community. So if it's a corporation and, a gentleman is very ego based, ego driven, right? Always thinking about the bottom line, what
Mhm.
the outcome is, and has lost that connection and that willingness to see what gets it there. That's where we work with them, working on changing the mindset. What are you willing to do? At what level would you be willing to experience a very different environment? And usually they might huff and puff a little bit, but they tend to be like, okay, let's give it a try. And then they start to see the shift in there. And then this again moves to their accountability. If you have to bring them into what's going on, that you are not willing to own that accountability, that you're stuck, that there's a constriction in the way you're thinking, what's going on. And this is where some of that one-on-one work goes deeper. So we start to really bring them to a new awareness. Usually when they start to realize, geez, I'm operating from a mindset when I was 22 and I got fired from this job. I had such a hard trajectory. Now I'm up on this position. I really don't want to lose it. So there's a lot of control energy, the structure of control. And when you start to help them soften that resistance and really learn to recalibrate what control really is, it's empowerment for me in disguise on the negative side of the scale. Control and empowerment, there's a reason why those two kind of energetic constructs feel the way they feel. Men tend to misread control and use it in a negative way. Women tend to align with empowerment and use it for a positive way. So I think working with the men and how we can really start to create that dialogue with them and let them entertain the idea what it would feel like to be an empowered leader of their corporation, their company, in a very positive way, rather than a way that, again, kind of dampens the brilliance and the genius of all the people they have working for them.
Yeah. How important are daily habits for what you're doing?
Ooh, yeah. I personally, my family, my clients, where we have a neuromuscular training facility also where my brother coaches top athletes every day. We run this formula all through the day because we're always being confronted with a contrast, right? Very, really sweet example. My daughter, who's very spiritual, very intellectual, woke up yesterday and she stubbed her toe. And she came out to me and she said, Mom, I had two choices. I could let that stub, right, of my toe start my day off in a very bad way. I could apply the formula, recalibrate it, and just go about my day in a more positive way. And that's exactly what she did. It's that simple. This is the beauty and the power of living the science of empowerment. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. You don't have to, follow 15 modules and write 100 journals in your life. And this is about releasing the struggle, softening the resistance of the patterns, and we apply it everywhere. When we talk about finances, when we talk about health, when we talk about exercise, when we talk about the wellness of who we are individually, and then as a family, and then your neighbors. I mean, this is all I talk about everywhere I go. If I'm in the post office, in the grocery store, and someone says, well, what do? You look very fit. I start talking about the science of empowerment. Because I don't just apply it in one area of my life. I apply it all the way through. And this is the beauty. You can use this formula everywhere. And if you already have something in place, it just supports and expands whatever other program is already in place. It brings of mm, another layer of thinking that actually awakens what's already in there.
Mhm.
It really moves that mind body consciousness to the next layer. So yes, the daily practice is when you wake up in the morning, be aware, how are you greeting the morning, right? And if it's happy, bring that out into the world. Be willing to bring that out into the world. Even if you get in your car and somebody's showing road rage in the traffic constantly, now what am I accountable? So for me, if you get in some traffic and you're in a hurry, put on conscious music code, put on my girl Gina. Oh, now I'm going to get some of that spray in my car. And now here, but you see what I'm saying? These are skills. These are techniques. This is part of building on these 5 principles. What else do we add in? And before you know it, your mind is thinking, okay, I'm accountable to how I react in this situation. Critical thinking. How would a positive, intellectual human being handle this situation? You don't get emotional, right? You don't react. You breathe and you respond. You use knowledge. You use skills. You use principles to up level your present moment. Now you go into energy. You're already at neutral because you've run through those principles. Now you choose, okay, maybe I can't be quite as positive as I want to be in the moment because something's weighing on me, but I'm neutral. Now, what do I do to take this neutrality and bump it up to positivity? And that's where the beauty of empowerment comes in. Then you go right back to, what am I aware of? I'm aware that I can choose positive mindset, positive thinking, positive response, positive activity to incorporate the new pattern of being an empowered individual. And you just loop it, and you loop it everywhere you're going. And we use it all the time,
Mhm.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, it really works.
And the music, do you use it kind of to anchor the change?
So for me, and I'm finding this out, which Gina and I are also working on this, and how to
Mhm.
really incorporate this music in. I find that the majority of people gravitate towards music, right? Because we all know the power of the tone, right? It can pretty much build a pyramid, right? If we go back in those days, there's a reason why music is so empowering. So yes, I think for me, when you put music behind happiness, behind empowerment, it absolutely resonates and it recognizes each other. So the positive thinking recognizes the tone, right? The
Mhm. Yeah.
happiness feeling recognizes the tone. And now we have two support systems in place. So I think music is very important, especially music such as what the conscious music code has created, because there's an awareness to the
Mhm.
music. So it's not like just putting on a melody that you feel good and you dance. There's a structure to how that program was created. And so when you merge it and you marry it and you infuse it with 4D lean, the science of empowerment, the J3 equals E formula, now you're really powering it up.
Yeah. And now we will help you with a new tool that's you know,
So excited.
boxes. Yeah, the boxes we developed with just aromas. Yeah, the effect, and it's like really amazing, like the effect of one of these sprays. It's just like there's one, for example, that we call productivity. It's like really to focus. It's like
Love
it
that.
has sandalwood in it, like really masculine grounding. Like when I have to focus, I can just not leave my desk. I
Right.
keep doing my tasks, and I even spray it on my clothes when I have things to do. So yeah, this might help you, like even bring it to, yeah, to a next level. Give it an extra dimension, maybe even literally like giving it like an extra dimension.
And that's what it does. And again, if we're talking about leadership, being open to all of this vision that's being presented to you. So if it's, you read a book, if you take on a program, if you add in the sensory of smell, there's so much history, and quite ancient knowledge
Mhm.
underneath all of this too. But there's a way to just express it. And all of us know smells, whether it's in a garden, whether it's beautifully cooked food. We all understand what that feels like. And so creating this sensory experience with the feeling, again, somebody maybe that's in a very frustrated state of mind at work, maybe there's soft vanillas, or
Mhm.
whatever it may be, and just spray it around. Immediately the brain takes that in with the sensory, calm. Then you start adding in, all of these other skills, again, principles, techniques, and pretty soon you have an environment from the moment you walk in, right? Can you imagine the moment you walk into your place of work, already this beautiful mist is already flowing. And then in the back of your mind, you had music and you listen to the science of empowerment about your 5 principles. You are going to walk in, you are going to absolutely be in a position to command your performance and your productivity, doesn't matter at what level, all throughout your day, because you've set the tone literally for the day.
Mhm.
Now you start to create an empowered human being that understands, when I follow this beautiful ebb and flow of taking in this new information, expanding how my mind, brain, consciousness really feels. Now you've got empowered beings showing up every day. Now they're bringing it to their home. Now you're creating a home environment and a work environment that's starting to move more in synergistic alignment. So it's definitely achievable. We're all working on it. We all have examples of it. And I think it's very important for leadership to open their mind and take in this wealth of information and begin to apply it, whether you're a small company, in between, or big. This is the way the future of global communication and global real connectivity is going to be. There will not be room for outdated mental imagery. There will not be room for antiquated patterns, following structures that dull the senses. To me, a smart leader now is one that just wants their community to show up and just pour out the brilliance. Every idea, every thought, bring it into this environment. How can we be that example? How can we be that leader in that field of technology, of medical, of financial, certainly of wholeness and wellness and well-being, mental health, all of it. It's there. It's there to tap into, and the people that tap into it, that's the leadership that I certainly love to follow and appreciate being in alignment with.
Thank you very much. This was the science of empowerment in half an hour. Maybe we put a link to your book in the comments that people can find what you are doing.
Yeah.
So thank you very much
You're
for.
welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, they can just go visit the website, www.thescienceofempowerment.com. For now, you can order the book. For all my international readership, there's an ebook download. We're going to be launching on Amazon soon. But anyone at any time, please reach out. Anything we can do together collectively to really, really expand the wellness of the community. That's what it's all about. So thank you, Jim. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.